Our reading today was written by Alva Romanes, who lived a life of crime and eventually earned a long-term prison sentence. But instead of turning to bitterness or anger, Alva turned inward to search his soul, and there he caught a vision of his divinity. And here's a poem he wrote while in prison in California during the 1920s. I am not the brood of dust and sod, nor a shuttled thread in the loom of fate, but the child divine of the living God, with eternity for my life's estate. I'm not the sport of a cosmic night, nor a thing of chance that has grown to man, but a deathless soul on my upward flight, and my Father's heir in his wondrous plan. As I weigh the suns on the rim of space, who can care to doubt of my destiny? Who can fence my feet within time and place as I search the worlds of infinity? I am man, the son of the one most high. I am man and one with the life divine. I am Lord of earth and sea and sky. And behold, the powers of heaven are mine. I am man the chosen, man the free, and it matters not what I may have been, for I walk erect throughout eternity to the far-off goal that is yet unseen. With unswerving faith in the coming day, I have turned my course from the things of time, and with Jesus, my brother, to point the way, I have found my place in the life sublime. Wow, what a wonderful journey he took. Well, it's time for our affirmation. Let's share the affirmation for January, written for us by Sandy Solomon, one of our dear prayer chaplains. I'll say it once as you soak it in, and then we'll say it together twice. My vision of the world reflects my inner beliefs. Now together. My vision of the world reflects my inner beliefs. Once again. My vision of the world reflects my inner beliefs. Now I invite you to join me in prayer. I take a breath and journey deep inside where God dwells within each of us. Here we catch the vision of life, knowing that God is all there is. God is our loving, peaceful, joyful Creator. Let's take a moment to contemplate this vision of our relationship with God. Now I declare with absolute certainty that we are the hands and voices of God's love on this earth. We are ambassadors of God's peace. We are trumpets of God's joy. We are co-creators with God. I'm deeply grateful for this vision that God has given us. And so it is. Amen.
in light of what we have experienced these past couple weeks, and especially what happened this week. And I'm not going to go into a big, sad story about what happened in Minneapolis. It's an incredibly sad thing that happened in Minneapolis. But it's a call. That's what it is. It is a call for each and every one of us to not sit back and just take it for granted that these things just happen. This lyric, how bad, how good does it need to get? How many losses, how much regret? What chain reaction would cause an effect? Makes you turn around, makes you try to explain, makes you forgive and forget, makes you change. Makes you change. I think about that chain reaction. We are positioned, each and every one of us, to engage in the spark of a chain reaction that can take over this entire world like that. That's where I'm going to start, with that idea. And just let that settle in as part of what it is that I seek in this thing that I'm engaged in called ministry, and how it presents itself not just to this community, but to a broader community, and the ways that we don't even know that we are allowing effect to unfold for other people because of our consciousness. We don't know what effect we have on other people. I've been a senior minister for nearly 15 years now in various communities. I've been here for almost 6 years now. And when things happen, I'll tell you, ministers go through it. We just go through it. We go through it just like everybody else does. I want to tell you something that happened to me in my very first year of ministry. And then I'm going to lighten it up, I promise. One of the most challenging Sundays I ever had to engage in as a senior minister, I was serving at the Center for Spiritual Living, Toronto. And I had started there in January of 2012. So 14 years I've been a senior minister. Started there in January of 2012. December of 2012, there were some things that happened. Among the things that happened was the mass shooting at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. And that was a really, really challenging Sunday that was compounded on that particular Sunday because a practitioner intern in my community had also opted to die by suicide that week. And again, I said, I promise I'm going to lighten it up. But to step into that Sunday with a deeply, deeply grieving community, personally grieving and collectively grieving for what had happened in the world, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. And one of the lessons that I learned in ministry was, do not speak about things for which you do not have a point of view from a spiritual perspective. And I'm having a challenge with that based on what happened this week. I'm having a challenge with that. But I do have a spiritual point of view, and I do have a spiritual perspective around what happened this week. And it is grounded in our second principle, which is really what I intended to talk about today. See how I'm getting back on track? In New Thought, there's an interesting thing that happens in New Thought. We get a bad rap sometimes. We get a bad rap because we can come across sometimes, I think, as cold and impersonal, and that we propose this idea of God that seems impersonal and like we can't have a relationship with God. Because we don't teach God as something with which to have a relationship. We don't teach God as something out there. I talked about it all last week. God is the infinite creative energy of the universe. God is an energy, not a thing in and of itself. but all things collectively create the manifest body of the divine. And we are, each and every one of us, part of that. So the challenge is, we come to New Thought and we get into this kind of intellectual idea of God as principle. You know, we talk about these, we use these terms, God as principle, God as creative energy, God as, and it diminishes, I think, for many people, a personal connection to God. But if you stick with this philosophy long enough and you move beyond the intellect into the embodiment of what it is we're really talking about, here's my question to you. What could be more personal than personalizing the divine as you? Because there is nothing more personal than infinite love, and that is what God is. We are, each and every one of us, the outflow of infinite love. And so then we talk about God is all there is. It's who and what we are, and our thoughts and our beliefs are creating our experience, and we have a spiritual practice that is meant to direct those thoughts and beliefs. That primary spiritual practice is prayer. And so then I ask myself, well, if we're basically saying that we are God, and it's essentially what we are saying, and I'm going to get to that a little bit more deeply in a moment. If we are saying we are God, does that mean we are praying to ourselves? No. No. What it is that what it is essentially supporting is this idea that we are not praying to God, we are praying as God, because that is the way God creates. By directed consciousness. And in prayer, we are directing consciousness on a certain path for a certain purpose. So we are praying as God. We are stating our requirement. We are not asking or supplicating ourselves to something outside the self, wishing, hoping, praying, oh my gosh, please let it be true. No, we are saying we are holding firm that this is the truth. So what could be more personal than praying as God? There is no expression of God that is better than another. I always say, to know the truth of my being, to remember who I am, to know that I am the expression of God is the great equalizer, because I'm not saying I am the allness of God. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I know who I am, and I must accept that about every single person I encounter. Every single person I encounter. There is no one closer to God than anyone else. Because you can't be closer to God than you are right now. Because you are God. How close does it get? Can't get any closer than that. These 5 principles really are directive for me in a profound way, and that is why it is so important to me to really luxuriate in them. That's the way I'm going to put it. I'm going to luxuriate in these 5 principles. I will remind you of the 5 principles. We started last week with God is all there is. And the second principle is, that is who and what we are. For we cannot be separate from the infinite. So today is really all about that second principle. But in that identity, in identifying ourselves as the divine, it is also a call to see beyond the circumstance of the relative. Even the relative is the expression of God. We are the creators of the relative. And so we need to see beyond the circumstance to the divine source at the core of all relative expression in order to then allow something new to come into expression. So it's a paradox, and I love paradox. I love a paradox, right? God is both transcendent. God is everywhere and everything. And it is also immanent. It is within, expressing within and as us. Does not mean that the wave is separate from the ocean. It's all one thing. We are not spiritual beings having we're not spiritual beings having a human experience. I know that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot in these circles. But we are not spiritual beings having a human experience. We are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. That's how I have chosen to approach life. And, I've kind of let go of that, which I used to say. I said it for years at the beginning of the service. You don't have to believe what I believe, but I'm going to reiterate it in this moment. You don't have to believe what I believe. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to offer the tenets of the philosophy, and you get to decide how to activate them or not in your life. So today, the call is to let us know ourselves as God. As God. There's a quote of Charles Fillmore. I didn't put it in my notes today, but it does come to mind in this particular moment, where in an unpublished transcript of a talk he once gave, he said, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have it completely memorized, he said something along the lines of, we speak to God in the third person. God is something out there, an it out there. And that's part of how we have begun our understanding of a relationship to a divine presence and power. We speak to God in the third person, and then we develop and we evolve and we change, and we begin to speak to God in the second person, God as a you with which we can have a relationship. And then he offers this, but the time is coming when we shall speak of God in the first person, for we shall have displaced all consciousness of separation. Now is that time. He said that almost 100 years ago. Now is that time. This is a quote from Ellen Davenport, Reverend Ellen Davenport. She offered this. She said, people who insist that humans are divine are often accused of thinking they are God. And the secret is, we are. Just as every tree is God in expression, just as every sunset or newborn child allows us to witness the divine, we too are the divine expressing in human form. There is no aspect of our beingness that is not holy and wholly divine. This is reflected in traditions globally. In the Gospel of Thomas, that's a Gnostic gospel, it was one of those things that was removed from the canonical scripture, Christian scripture. But in the Gospel of Thomas, these are the words of Jesus. In order to know everything, you must first know yourself. If you do not know yourself, then you know nothing. Those who know themselves also know the all. This is paralleled in the Bhagavad Gita. If you would become perfect, discover the self within. Seek awareness, not intelligence. Paralleled in Buddhism. There is neither self nor other. The only way to see what is real is to consider all things as being not two. And in the Tao Te Ching, wisdom comes from knowing oneself. One who knows oneself is enlightened. The mystics of the ages have been saying the same thing. We are all one unified wholeness. Maybe we should start acting like it. It is very easy for a leader to come into a position and seek division. We do not need to subscribe to that idea. We do not need to give in to that idea. But it requires work, not toil. I want to be really clear. It requires work. It requires inner spiritual work to come to a deep understanding of the truth of our being, and to then understand and know that truth to be so for every single person we encounter, whether we are in conflict with them or not. Every single person is worthy of love and respect. Every single person is worthy of love and respect, for we are one. We are one unified wholeness. We are not two. We are not many, although we express as multiplicity. Part of this journey is to allow ourselves to settle back into an acknowledgement, I think sometimes, of letting go of what we think we know. That's a hard path. but it is what I endeavor to do in every aspect and facet of my ministry. One of my favorite mantras that I engage in when I engage in the practice of meditation is this: I know nothing. Now what can I know? I know nothing. Now what can I know? That opens me up to the full expression and experience of divine revelation. For I am not sourcing my awareness in the circumstance. I am saying I'm letting go of sourcing in the circumstance, and I'm allowing myself to open up to the infinite power and presence that is fully expressing by means of all creation, and that is inclusive of me. So I let go of what I think I know. I know nothing. Now what can I know? And I've been sitting with that very mantra for several days in light of what unfolded this week. I know nothing. Now what can I know? Yesterday I reached out to a prayer chaplain. And what I was seeking in my interaction with that prayer chaplain was clarity, a point of view and understanding, to see beyond the circumstance of what has been presented to me in media, to let go of what I think I know, and to open up to a greater, deeper, spiritual, divine understanding. Part of the question that arose for me was to consider this: why do people behave so badly? Why? Why do people behave so badly? Now, it's not to say that I have not behaved badly in my own life. I want to tell you, I have behaved badly in my own life. Not so much recently. Ellen Debenport had this to offer in relationship to that very question. Some people might make choices that others label bad or evil, but who is to say that they are not playing their parts perfectly for the overall growth of our species? Ooh, that's a tough one to hear. But it was a reminder to me in that moment, as I reflected upon that idea, that the difficulty in the circumstance itself is the great teacher. I have often said that when something is falling apart in your life, it's because the innate divine quality can no longer be contained by the limitations we have put into place, and so something new must be born. But what must be born means that what has been needs to give way. That's what we're experiencing right now. That is what we are experiencing right now. The giving way to something new. I see on the other side of all the trials, tribulations, and difficulty that we are experiencing collectively on this planet right now, I see something extraordinary, marvelous, magnificent. And we are the point at which that expression begins. We are the beginning of that chain reaction. Who will you choose to be today? We are called, each and every one of us, to vision more deeply. The divine is not something we reach for. It is something we remember as our identity. It is not out there, but living as us. There is only one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is our life right now. With that knowledge, how will you choose to proceed today? What will you do today? Letting go of any past idea, any past trial, any past disturbance, any past challenge, how will you choose to move forward today from that point of view? The deeper self, the God essence self, sees without division. There is no self and other. There is no me and them. There is only one life appearing as multiplicity. We are the many forms of the one, each and every one of us. So I think it's time that we start to let go of asking what's wrong with them and start asking ourselves, what is seeking growth in this experience through me? Because we are not here to go through trials and tribulations. We are here to grow through trials and tribulations. My dear friend and colleague had this to offer some time ago. everything happens for a good reason. Thank you, Reverend William. And I'm reminded of that because I don't want to live with just everything happens for a reason. No, everything happens for a good reason. Live from that point of view. Consider that as being the basis from which all your life unfolds and things will transform. Sometimes the thing that hurts the most is the very thing teaching us to see more clearly. The difficulty can be the teacher. So the call today is to see through spiritual eyes, that is seeing beyond circumstances. And then, from that vision, may we speak truth and live boldly and truly, deeply remember who we are. Peace and blessings. You are magnificent. So with that in mind, I offer this as our life practice. In the face of any seeming difficulty, adopt the practice of taking a pause, taking a breath, and silently affirming, I choose to see this differently. Then look again for where Spirit might be expressing, teaching, or inviting growth. In the face of any seeming difficulty, adopt the practice of taking a pause, taking a breath, and silently affirming, I choose to see this differently. Then look again for where Spirit might be expressing, teaching, or inviting growth. I think sometimes we go a little too quickly. We're culturalized into that, right? It is important sometimes to stop, take a breath, take a pause, and consider the spiritual alternative to the circumstantial experience we are having. So that's the life practice this week. And, as it's a life practice, I invite you to take that on as a practice for life.
Are you spiritual but not religious? Do you believe in unconditional love? Are you ready to create the life you know you deserve? Are you looking for an inclusive spiritual community? Do you want to discover how magnificent you really are? If you're looking for a spiritual path that's all about love, freedom of choice, and compassion,
we can't wait to meet you.
Unity of Tucson, Sundays at 9:15 a.m.
Need a moment of peace or inspiration? Call the Unity of Tucson prayer line for a comforting, uplifting prayer, available 24/7. Each month, we offer a new affirmative prayer to support you on your prayer journey. Call today and let the power of prayer uplift your spirit.